3 years ago, OpenAI was the clear leader in AI. Anthropic was still a startup with almost no revenue. By April 2026, that picture had changed. By most measures, Anthropic's annualized revenue had moved ahead of OpenAI's. In the enterprise API market, Anthropic held about 32%, while OpenAI had around 25%. Among newly signed enterprise customers, roughly 70% were choosing Anthropic. More importantly, Anthropic was expected to reach positive cash flow in 2028, 2 to 3 years earlier than OpenAI. Same industry, same cloud giants, same pool of enterprise customers. One company managed to keep workable relationships with Google and Amazon, go from almost nothing to revenue leadership in 3 years, and get to profitability sooner. The other strained its relationship with Microsoft, turned Google into a structural rival, pushed its CFO to the margins of decision-making, dismantled 3 safety teams in 2 years, replaced its independent board, and burned through a 3-year head start. OpenAI leaned too hard into consumer AI while neglecting the enterprise side. And when roughly 95% of its users were still on the free tier, meaning the returns from scale were weak, it still did not shift its center of gravity fast enough. Instead, it kept piling browsers, shopping, ad monetization, and more front-end expansion onto an already heavy consumer machine. That was the key point where OpenAI and Anthropic began to diverge. None of those ideas looked crazy on their own. The problem is that they were not just consuming scarce compute that should have gone to core model training and enterprise products. They were also consuming product priority, executive attention, business narrative, and organizational bandwidth. Worse, they were creating new enemies and new controversies. The more OpenAI turns ChatGPT into a search gateway, an ad surface, and a user entry point, the deeper it moves into Google's most valuable territory. Google's real crown jewel is not AI models. It is search and advertising. The closer OpenAI gets to that core, the less reason Google has to support it as a long-term partner. Shopping creates the same problem with Amazon. Once OpenAI moves further down the path of search, shopping, ads, and a giant consumer gateway, it stops looking like a simple cloud customer that buys compute and sells APIs. It starts looking like a company that could one day eat into Amazon's platform position. As ChatGPT becomes more dependent on ads, users start asking a different question. Is this system helping me or steering me toward a commercial outcome? The experience shifts from answering questions to guiding behavior. That is not just a monetization issue, it is a trust issue. Consumer AI was already heavy, expensive, and hard to monetize. But instead of simplifying that machine, OpenAI kept layering on more projects that stole compute, stole executive focus, and created more friction. As a result, the enterprise side, the side that should have come first and could have monetized sooner, was gradually handed to Anthropic. To be fair, OpenAI still has real advantages: massive user reach, the strongest consumer brand in AI, and models that remain highly competitive. The issue is not whether OpenAI has assets. The issue is whether those assets are being converted into durable enterprise value or diluted across too many fronts at once. Then there is Microsoft. Microsoft should have been OpenAI's biggest strategic advantage. It provided money, cloud, distribution, and enterprise reach. But Altman wanted 2 things at once. He wanted Microsoft's support, and he wanted the market to believe that OpenAI was not controlled by Microsoft. Because only then could people believe OpenAI was worth $852 billion on its own, instead of thinking Microsoft helped carry it there. But those 2 goals pull against each other from the start. And now Microsoft is protecting itself. It has already brought Anthropic's Claude into Copilot, not just for side functions, but for multi-step tasks and also for reviewing GPT outputs. That means OpenAI's most important distribution partner is openly using OpenAI's strongest competitor to balance its dependence. OpenAI appears to be becoming a company that is harder for almost every key stakeholder to work with. For Google, working with Anthropic is a win-win. Google gives it equity, TPUs, and cloud capacity. Anthropic grows and Google benefits directly. Just as importantly, Anthropic does not attack Google's most valuable search and advertising business. For Amazon, Anthropic is also a win-win. As Anthropic grows, AWS makes money. And unlike OpenAI, Anthropic stays focused on enterprise AP is instead of pushing into search, shopping, ads, and a giant consumer gateway. With Anthropic closing the gap, Altman wanted to move before the window narrowed. He wanted to lock in valuation, refill capital, and sell the story before the gap closed further. But OpenAI's CFO, Sarah Friar, was against a rushed IPO, and that is exactly why she was pushed to the margins. Friar was looking at a different reality. If capital spending, the Microsoft relationship, regulatory risk, governance readiness, and the path to profitability were still unresolved, then the earlier OpenAI went public. The earlier all of those problems would be exposed to the market, and the market would not absorb those problems kindly. It would translate them into a lower valuation, bigger price swings, and relentless quarterly questioning. That is also why Anthropic is not under the same pressure to rush into an IPO. It already looks more like the kind of enterprise AI company the stock market can understand. Enterprise AP is less consumer baggage, earlier visibility on positive cash flow, and easier partnerships with Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. Then there is the safety and regulatory risk. From 2024 to 2026, OpenAI dismantled 3 separate AI safety teams in less than 2 years. Safety researchers lost veto power over launches. The company had publicly committed 20% of compute to safety work, but in practice, the real allocation fell to around 1% to 2%. That is not some abstract governance concern. It has already produced real-world consequences. On April 9, 2026, Florida's Attorney General formally launched an investigation into OpenAI, including allegations that ChatGPT may have helped plan a mass shooting, along with concerns about risks to children, self-harm, and national security. Anthropic simplified, OpenAI piled on. In the end, what changed most was not the competition, but the way OpenAI was run. OpenAI's biggest challenge may not come from Anthropic or Google. It may instead come from the person who turned manageable pressure into overlapping structural risk. That person may well be Sam Altman himself. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of analysis, subscribe. And if you think I got something wrong, tell me in the comments. I read them.